Okay, it's noon. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Amanda. I'm the programs manager at Oregon Farmers Markets Association. And I'm just going to get started here. And this is the workshop, How to Start Offering SNAP, Farm Direct Nutrition Program, and Double Up Food Bucks at Your Farmer's Market, and where to get free EBT equipment. I'm just going to go into a little bit of housekeeping and how this program is going to work. So just want to let you know this workshop is being recorded and will be shared to OFMA's website at OregonFarmersMarkets.org. Feel free to turn off your video if you don't want to be on camera. That's totally fine. I know we've all been on a lot of Zoom calls. To help keep background noise to a minimum, just make sure you mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And you'll be able to see both the speaker and their slides during the presentation, but depending on how your screen is set up, you might want to mess around with this. The view settings are usually in the top right-hand side of your screen. We'll have 4 speakers today, and there'll be Q&A time following each presenter's talk. And if you have a question before the end of the talk and don't want to forget it, you can submit it through the chat box. Alice Morrison is our chat box manager, and she'll call on you later to answer your question. Thanks so much, Alice, for helping us with this. And if you're having any tech issues during the workshop, send questions through the same chat box to our Zoom manager, to Melissa Mathewson, and she'll help you out. And thank you, Melissa, for help with that. And this chat that we're talking about, it's usually at the bottom of your screen. When you chat, make sure to click and choose the right audience for your chat or question, whether you want that to go just to Alice or just to Melissa, or if you want the whole group to see it. And so to begin, let's give it a quick try. Why don't you please put your farmer's market that you're representing in the chat box and send it to everyone. We want to know who is here today. I'm just gonna give a quick shout out to our sponsors. These businesses and organizations have made it possible for OFMA to provide our Winter Learning Series workshops. And we hope to see you at more of OFMA's upcoming workshops. Here's a list of them that are coming up over the next couple of months. All you have to do is go to our website to register for these upcoming events. Now a little agenda and some introductions about what's about to come. As I said, each section, we've got 4 sections today, and each section will be followed by Q&A time with that presenter. I'm going to go first. I'm going to talk about how, some real basics of how SNAP works at farmers markets, and also what opportunities there are for your market to get free EBT equipment and which markets qualify. Then we'll hear from Teresa Johnson. She works for the USDA's Food and Nutrition Services. And she and her team are the people who read our applications that we turn in. And she's gonna tell us how to fill those FNS applications out properly so that we can get approved on our first try. We'll have a quick 2-minute stretch break after that if we have time. And then otherwise, we're going to head into hearing from Katie Furia, who's the Farm Direct Nutrition Program Outreach Coordinator for the Oregon Health Authority. She's going to tell you about that program and how to sign up to be a participating farmers market. And then we'll hear from Mallory Watson. She's the program coordinator at Farmers Market Fund. She's going to talk about Double Up Food Bucks and preparing your market to meet the requirements that you'll need to be able to do to apply for that program. Okay, so getting started. What is SNAP and what is EBT? SNAP stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's a federal food assistance program administered by the USDA's Food and Nutrition Services, and it provides crucial financial support to households experiencing food insecurity so that people have enough food to eat. SNAP funds are loaded onto an electronic benefits transfer card. That's the EBT card, which can be used like a credit or debit card. And each state has its own EBT card design. And in Oregon, they're also called Oregon Trail cards. So each state different looking card, but anybody from any state can use their card in Oregon at your farmer's market. How does SNAP work at a farmer's market? This is the basics of what it just looks like on site day of at your market. SNAP transactions usually take place at the market's info booth or another central location, and it should be the role of staff or a really well-trained and trusted volunteer. This isn't something you can expect someone to learn how to do on the spot when they arrive to volunteer that day. So the customer brings their EBT card to the info booth before they shop, and they tell the market representative how much they want to spend. The market assists the customer by ringing up the sale and swiping their EBT card, and then the customer enters their confidential PIN number. The transaction gets submitted wirelessly, just like cell phone info, and the customer's purchase is approved or denied automatically, just like a credit or debit sale. When approved, the market gives the customer tokens for the amount of the sale, and almost always these tokens are in $1 amounts, which offers the most flexibility for customers because you can't give cash change back. Once the sales transaction has been completed, the customer's funds from their EBT card are directly deposited into the market's bank account, along with all the other transactions of the day, usually in one batch, and it typically happens within about 48 hours, but can take up to 7 days. So once the transaction is over and the customer has their tokens, they go out into the market and they can shop with the vendors. The tokens can be spent all in one day or saved for another time. The tokens don't expire. And this means that it's never one-to-one each day how many tokens you sell and how many are spent with the vendors and how many come back to you from the vendors. And it takes a lot of careful tracking to keep track of how many tokens you have out in the world. So after the customer spends the tokens, then the tokens are now with the vendor. And at the end of the day, the vendors turn the tokens back into the market for reimbursement. The market counts the tokens received from vendors and provides a reimbursement according to the market's own financial protocols. And some markets do reimbursements right there on the spot, but most collect tokens and later do the counting offsite and then issue a weekly or monthly check to vendors. So that's the basics of how it happens on site. The basics of getting started with SNAP are that you need to assess your market's capacity to accept SNAP and because implementing a SNAP EBT program is an ongoing operation with a lot of financial and labor investments. And from the very beginning, you need to make sure your market is ready to do those things. So if you can say yes to most of the following items, then you're pretty much ready to get started. Those things include stuff like having your business registration with the Oregon Secretary of State, having a bank account, having an advisory board or board of directors so that you have this overarching support to your organization, having paid staff or a very strong and consistent volunteer base, having a bookkeeper and financial systems, funds to cover your monthly service fees, your tokens and supplies, and doing your marketing and promotion. You also need to be located in an area with good cell service so that your machine will consistently run transactions properly. So if you have all of that, then the next steps are to apply online to FNS to become a SNAP authorized retailer and get your market's FNS number. And that's about what we're going to go through in the next few minutes here with Teresa. You also need to decide what type of EBT point of sale equipment to use and set up an account with an EBT service provider. You need to get tokens and set up a vendor reimbursement process. You need to train staff, volunteers, and vendors. This info is similar to each of those audiences, but also a little bit different. You need to really be specific with each of these groups about what their roles and responsibilities are. And you need to do outreach and marketing so that your community knows they can use SNAP at your market. Even gas stations have signs up that say, you know, EBT accepted here, and farmers markets need to also do a good job of spreading the word about EBT being available. So the next big thing is how to get free equipment, or how to get EBT equipment, and possibly for free. There are 2 funding programs available in Oregon to help purchase equipment. To qualify, your market must either have no equipment currently, or the equipment you have isn't functional. One program is from the Oregon Department of Human Services. They will provide all the equipment for you for free. That's the iPad, a data plan, an EBT card reader, and a printer. They also provide the software, the use of the Total Pay Go app, and there's no transaction fees with that. The one thing is that you probably can't add integrated credit and debit processing on that same machine. There's a little bit of a question out there about that right now, but I'm gonna, for the purposes of this workshop, I'm gonna say you probably won't be able to do that. And then this current program is only available through September of 2021. The other program is a national program with MarketLink. This program is a bring your own device program, which means that you need to already have an iPad that you want to use, and you have to pay for your own internet or internet data plan. They will give you a free EBT card reader, and they will give you 1 year free use of the Total Pay Go app with no transaction fees. With this program, you don't need to have a printer because they actually have that waived. So there's no printer involved when you go through MarketLink. They do allow integrated credit and debit processing, and their program is available through September of 2022. Although just a note, if you applied now, you get a year's worth of the free app, even though the program would go on longer. Okay, so hopefully that was quick enough. Are there any questions? Alice, is there anything that anybody would like to ask?
Yes, we have a couple questions on equipment. Patrick asked, do these need to be with Apple devices, or can you use Android as well?
Yep, Apple or Android.
And then Stephanie also asked, I looked into that program, the MarketLink program, I think is what she's referencing, and you have to pay annually after the first year for that app access. So that's a good note for everyone, Stephanie, thank you. And Kaylee asks, when the DHS service closes, would we need to transition to MarketLink, or what do you do after that DHS service closes?
Yeah, you would need to transfer to paying for the app and paying for your monthly fees on your own. I'm not sure that to qualify for the MarketLink, for both of these programs, to qualify for them, you have to have no equipment or equipment that is not functioning. So I don't think you can transfer to the other program after the one ends. Yeah.
So Denise asks a related question. What are the fees after 1 year if these programs provide that for free?
So the Total Pay Go app is around $180 a year. And then Snap processing fees per swipe are usually around 10 cents a swipe. And then there's the data plan, and that will be similar to whatever it's like getting a data plan for yourself for your own phone. So your market would have to decide what is the best one for your market. Yeah.
So we have a couple more questions. Kimmy asked, where can they get tokens? I just dropped a couple of the recommended links in the chat box for where people can find tokens. And Jessica asks that she has just taken over this position and got a bunch of boxes full of stuff, including the EBT machine. How do you test it to see if it's functioning if you don't currently have a payment processor set up?
I think that's a question I'm going to have to get in touch with her offline to work through. So okay. Get in touch with me at Amanda at Oregon at OregonFarmersMarkets.org.
Okay, and Jessica, I noted that down, so I'll send that to Amanda as well. How much time do we have for more questions? Yeah, there are several.
There are several. I'm gonna scoot those to the end of the time so that we can keep going as needed, because I really want to get into Teresa having time to show us how to go through the application. So.
Okay, great. I'll note down the rest of the questions and we'll circle back.
Thanks. Teresa, do you want to start sharing your screen and go into showing us how the FNS application works?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hi, so yes, I'm Teresa Johnson and I work with the USDA and with the FNS department, so the Food Nutrition Department. Our department that I specifically work for, we deal with farmers market and direct marketing farmers. So like Amanda said, when your application comes in, it comes in directly to our department. So let's go through what an application looks like and how do you apply for it. So we're gonna start with definitions. FNS defines a farmer's market as a farmer's market is defined as a multi-style market at which farmer producers sell agricultural products directly to the general public at a central or fixed location. Particularly, this is fresh fruit and vegetables, but it can also be meat, dairy, or any other staple food items. Farmers market can be ran, operated by a sole owner, a for-profit organization, a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and a state/government organization. If you notice in this, we define nonprofit organization and a 501c3. So for the purpose of FNS, we break those two nonprofit categories out. If your organization is nonprofit through the state or does not have a 501c3 tax identification, that's fine. We're just going to ask that you provide your Social Security and photo ID. If the market is ran by a 501c3 organization, then we will not require a Social Security. So we would use that 501c3 EIN number as the market Social Security information. But you would still have to provide the market manager or the executive director, whomever is signing, the copy of their ID. We're going to talk about documents to provide towards the end as well. So then we have a direct marketing farmer. So this is defined as a farmer that is an individual producer of agricultural products, particularly fresh fruit and vegetable, as well as meat, fish, dairy, and or grains. So this is just your traditional farmer. So when you think of direct marketing farmer, this is just your farmer. Okay, then we have one other category. It's called reseller. So this would be a farmer that would, or a person who would purchase produce, and then they're going to sell that produce at a fixed location and or at a mobile location. So if you're applying and you don't farm or you don't grow your own produce, but you go buy it, then that's what we consider a reseller. Okay, so when we're going to go apply for an FNS number, so you need an FNS permit, this is the website that we're going to go to. All of our applications are currently online for a farmer's market and a direct marketing farmer. If for whatever reason that you cannot get online or the system is not allowing you, or you're just not computer savvy, there's a number that you can call. It'll be listed at the end, and then someone can walk you through the application and or send you a paper application. Paper application is like the last thing that we like to send out, just because now with the system, you're able to apply and upload all the documents directly to your application. So the website that you want to go to is listed here. This is directly from the website. This page will provide very helpful information about the SNAP program overall. And then, so if you are a farmer or producer, like we described in the beginning, you're going to click on farmer producer. It's going to then take you to this page. Once again, these are sites that are taken, snapshots that are taken directly from our website. In the middle of that in the middle of this page is going to be how you can apply for the application. Before you apply, if you haven't visited this website, I would recommend checking it out. There's some helpful information before you are FNS approved and as well as after you're FNS approved. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. So as you click on apply, it's going to bring you to this page right here. So the first part of the application, you have to get, you have to authenticate your account. So you have to sign up or register for a USDA account. So for the purpose of the application process, you only have to go through level 1 authentication. Okay. So if you notice on this website, this is the page. Let me go back one page. So you're going to select get a USDA account. When you click on that hyperlink, it's going to take you right here to this create an account, getting started. So once you only need level 1 authorization. And sometimes for some people, for whatever reason, this takes an overnight processing. So you can go in, sign up, and I'm going to show you what that sign up page looks like. You might not be able to process your application as soon as you get done. Sometimes, like I said, it takes overnight processing. Sometimes people will get an email immediately and they can go through the email to authorize their account. So once again, only need level 1. And after you click on level 1, this is what it's going to look like. So I'm going to scoot it over just a little bit. Okay. So self-explanatory, you're going to put your first name, your last name, the contact information. So it has an email address there. This is the email address that you want to make sure that you're using, that someone checks it regularly, because this is how USDA FNS is communicating with applicants at this time because of COVID and things like that. So our first line of contact is through email. So if there is something that we need, or we just want to contact you to verify some information that you provided, we're going to contact you via email. So this email address is going to be the first email that you can put in. This is if your application, this authorization, I'm sorry, if there's some information that's needed, they're going to contact you via this email. Also, for you to authenticate your account, they're going to contact you through this email. Login information, you just want to put something that you're going to be able to remember, because this is going to be the information that you're going to use to get in and out of your application. So if you start an application and you need more time, or you need to find more documents, or get information, you can save it. You're going to go back in using the same user ID and password. Okay. Just in case you happen to forget your password or your user ID, these 4 questions is just for that purpose. If you happen to lose or forget your password, they're going to ask you these security questions. These security questions are not going anywhere else besides to let you back into your application. Okay. If for whatever reason you cannot remember your password or your user ID, and you cannot complete these questions, or you can't go back in and provide the correct information for these questions, that application is gone. You're going to have to do a whole nother application. Okay. All right. So after you have your login, your user ID, you're going to get to this site. Let's start your application. So once again, like I said, you can start a new application from this link, or you can continue with your save application. Whichever one you click on, you can go ahead. Then we're going to get to, this is a new application. So you're going to get to this page and you're going to say, what am I? Am I a farmer's market? So they give you like the definition that we described earlier of what a farmer's market is. A farmer's market is a multi-stall market at which farmer producers sell their own individual items at a fixed location. Farmer's market. And then like we kind of have like this photo cues where it looks like what a traditional farmer's market would look like. And that is on the right. So if you're applying as a farmer, you're going to complete the application that's on the left. It's a store application. So when you're thinking about your business, your farm, you're going to answer these questions as if your farm was your store. And in actuality, that is, you're selling the goods that you have produced on your land and it's your store. Okay. So on the store application, you will see more words like retail or retail sales or things like that, where you're thinking, I didn't click on the right application. But if you are a farmer, you're going to want to click on the application on the left because you're applying in your farm. You're going to apply for your farm like it's a store. Okay. Okay. Hold your questions if you have them. Normally, this is when I have a lot of questions. It's right here. So if you do have questions, I can always go back to this slide and we can get in a little bit more. Okay. Okay, so now we're at the application. So once again, these are just screenshots directly from the application. The first part, before you begin, it's just information about items that you're going to need and to try to prepare you to complete the application. An acknowledgement page is just that saying that you are the one that's authorized to apply for this farmers market, and just some other just some other acknowledgement that you know that what comes with the responsibility of applying and accepting SNAP. Okay. Then it's the basic information. I didn't take a screenshot of that because it is just that. It is the location of your farmers market. It's the mailing address. It's the email address, phone numbers, and they're going to require you to have 2 phone numbers. So you want to have 2 phone numbers handy. That's all in the basic information. So now you're going to get to the screen that we're on now, which is accountability information. These are what we call integrity questions. So if you're applying for your farmers market and you're the market manager, these are the questions that we're asking you specifically as the market manager. If your organization is a 501c3 farmers market and you're applying on behalf of that 501c3, these questions are going to apply to the person who is signing, who is going to sign the application, who is going to give us a signature page. A lot of times this can be the executive director or the board president or something like that. I keep getting distracted by the question that's coming down. So I'm trying not to look at those, but please, at the end, I will definitely answer any questions. So once again, these are just integrity questions, the accountability questions. Wholesale. If you have a farmer's market, as we defined a farmer's market in the beginning, and once again, it's a farmer's market where individual vendors come together to sell their own items. You're not going to have wholesale there. Now, your vendors might provide wholesale at their farm or wherever they at. But at that farmer's market, more than likely, you're not going to have wholesale sales going on at that farmer's market event. Okay. But if you're applying as a farmer, you might have wholesale sales from your farm that you sell to a business, hospital, restaurant. That's what this question right here is asking about. Your farm sales that you do outside of retail sales that you do to a business, hospital, or and restaurant, or things of those sorts. Okay. So now we're getting to the application that has inventory information. Amanda, do I have time to answer some questions? Because I know we're going to have questions from this point on.
Let's see, it's 12:30. You have 22 minutes left. You have until 12:50.
Okay. Is it Elisa? Is it Elise?
Hello.
Hi. Okay. I wanted to see if there's any questions that I maybe can answer what we got up to this point, just because I know for a fact we're going to have questions from this point on.
Definitely.
Okay.
I do think there are a couple that would be quick to address before we
Okay.
move on. Jessica asks, my market has been accepting EBT for a few years. Is this FNS application something that we have to renew, or once you've done it, is it done?
Good question. So Jessica, two parts. You have a reauthorization process. So after a couple of years, FNS is going to reach out to you and say, hey, is your market still operating? Are the people there still the same? That leads me to my second point. If the person who signed, if the market manager is no longer there, you need to report that information, because more than likely we have that market attached to that previous person's social security number. You can't share FNS numbers. So you can't share the market information. So if that person is no longer there, you need to notify FNS. It's going to be a phone number at the end of the slide. You need to let us know that that market manager is not there, because technically you shouldn't be using a previous FNS number that's tied to someone else. The second part to that is if the market is ran by a 501c3. So in theory, the market didn't change because that EIN number is still attached. That hasn't changed, but maybe the point of contact has. So maybe the executive director or the board president changed. Once again, a number at the end, it's going to be the same number. You want to let us know, because the new board president or the new executive director, we want them to sign that acknowledgement paper. So that way they know the responsibilities of having that FNS number.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So it sounds like if they have had a change in leadership, or if FNS reaches out to you after a few years, then you do need to reauthorize. But until that happens, you could keep going along.
You keep going.
Mm-hmm. All right. We have another question from Stephanie about what is the role of a farmer's market in enforcing SNAP rules, and what are the risks of SNAP fraud for farmers markets? What of other, well, the next question is more for market manager discussion, but yeah, I think if you could touch on like who is responsible for enforcing those rules and what that looks like in a farmer's market context.
Okay, so the person who's signing that application is the person who's responsible, because they're saying that I know the rules and regulation that comes with having this FNS permit. That's why we don't like for that to be shared. There's not a lot of fraud that comes with the farmers market side of the application, but I have seen other markets, and maybe that could be something they will discuss later on in other presentations, but there's like vendor rules, you know, that the vendors sign to and say that, you know, they agree to the market's rules that they put in place. So that could be something inside your vendor's agreement that you have, that they know that these are items that can and cannot be purchased with SNAP. Hopefully I answered that.
Definitely. And Shiny also asked if we could touch on the eligible purchases for SNAP. I did drop a link in the chat box for going over those, and I can put that in just a moment. And I guess one more. Oh, actually, that question has been answered about how to change over the contact information for a nonprofit. Yep. So that is good. Yep. And we have one more question that is more about a DHS program, so we'll save that for the end.
Okay, cool. Yay, not too bad. Okay, you guys are following along and no one is really, really lost. If all failed, the number that we're going to provide at the end is going to give you someone directly with our department, so they'll be able to give you more information or reiterate if there's something that you have questions on. You can get that one-on-one. Okay, so let's talk about inventory information. So as a farmer's market, you're looking at this application like, what? I don't have bread or dairy or meat or vegetables, but you're thinking of your vendors that you have participating with you. Okay, so the farmers, so when you're filling out this application, you're going to think about your farmers market as a whole. So you're thinking about all the vendors that you have or potentially will have join in your farmers market. So then you're going to go, I'm going to go to 19D, which is the easiest one. Excuse me, the vegetables and fruit category. So this category, this section right here, this could be one of your vendors, and that vendor has 10 or more items. It depends on, you know, what they're bringing. So if they're bringing tomatoes or cucumbers or carrots or apples, oranges, whatever it is that they're bringing, they might have, depending on how big their spot is or their table, they might have 10 or more of these items. So you'll click on select one. You can go from 0 all the way up to 10 plus. You have to put something in this item. So say at your farmer's market, you might not have anyone there who is selling meat or poultry. That's okay. So you're going to put 0 there. Okay. But you have to put something in each one of these categories. Once again, if you have a vendor that's selling dairy, but they might only have cheese, then that would possibly be 1, but they have a variety of cheese, but they only have cheese. So that might just be 1 item for that. Or I'm trying to think of some other examples. The bread. So if you have someone who is selling rice pasta flour or some type of grain item, then you will put that there. That's another category that if you have a vendor who is there that's selling these items, that they might have 10 or more different varieties of bread. Okay. Also for 20, we're going to get down to with this item, they want to know the stocking unit variety. So when your fruit and vegetable farmer comes to your market, he or she is going to bring more than 1 carrot, more than 1 apple. So that's what that question is asking. Is your vendors there? Do they have 3 or more of all of these items that they're bringing? More than likely, the answer is going to be yes. Once again, it has to be a yes or no that you have to indicate in here. But if you put no for not having, if you put 0 for dairy, for the number of varieties in dairy, you put 0, the system is going to want you to put no for do you have at least 3 stocking units of each variety in dairy? It's going to be no because you said that you had 0 items in dairy. Okay. Before I go. The next part is, do you have at least 1 variety of perishable foods in each one of these categories? More than likely, the answer is going to be yes. You have your perishable, the fruit and vegetable vendor that you have there, the items that they have is perishable. Once again, if you don't have any of those items, if you don't have a vendor that sells, go back to dairy because that's an easy one. If you don't have a vendor that sells dairy, you put 0 for question 19. Question 20, you put no. Question 21, you're going to put no too for 21B. 19B, 20B, 21B. Okay. That's when I normally have some questions there too. Do I need to stop, Elisa? Is it Elise? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
Okay.
It's Alice. And
Alice, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. We have one question that I don't know if you know the answer to, but is it recommended in a farmer's market context for vendors who might be larger farm vendors to have their own SNAP processing equipment? Or do you all prefer going through the market as a whole? What would you recommend?
That's really individual. You know, if there is a farmer that is larger, it might benefit them to go directly to FNS, to go directly through us to get their own processing number, FNS number, because they have more flexibility to use that permit or that number at the market, at their own farm site, at their own farm stand. So it really just depends. But then sometimes you have farmers who don't have the time or the extra employees to put into managing that. So some of them just like to participate at a market and not have to worry about all that other stuff.
Definitely. I think that gets to the meat of the question that if you do have your own SNAP processing equipment, you can use that for your selling your farm products in another context as well.
Yes.
Let me look. I think that some of the other questions were answered by Amanda in the chat.
Cool.
And I think we're okay to move on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the retail sales amount. When you get to this question, you might think, I don't have this information. My market is new. That's fine. So you're going to give us what we call estimated. For the tax year, it only allows you to do estimated. It only is going to allow you to do the current year because you're basically estimating from this point on. If you have actual retail sales, it's only going to let you go 2 years back. So it's going to have 19 and 18 on there. So you can put in, if your farmer's market actually have these sales amount that you guys kept, and you know what your farmer's market did for the last year, you can provide that here. So you're going to get to the percentage part. So we have staple foods, accessory foods, hot foods, cold foods prepared on site, non-food items, and then a total. So all of these have to equal 100%. The system is not going to allow you to advance until you have put in figure amounts, if you have put in amounts that will equal up to 100. Also, the system will not let you advance if you just skip. So let's use for an example, let's go cold foods prepared on site. If you don't have any vendors that meet this category, and you don't put anything there, you have to put something. You have to put 0. So you have to put some type of percentage there. If you have no non-food vendors there, you're going to put 0. Okay, so the purpose of a farmer's market, some non-food items might be if you have someone that's selling soaps. I see that at a lot of farmers market. They're selling soaps or some type of jewelry or even arts and crafts. Those are non-food items, okay? Staple foods is just that, the rice, milk, beef, apples, etc. Some accessories we have listed is like the chips, the candies, the snack foods, soft drinks, things like that. Hot foods is just that, hot foods. Cold foods is just that, cold food, sandwiches, salads, and things like that. Okay. So the next screen I'm going to take you to, it's going to help you figure out your retail sales. If you're a new farmer's market and you do not have your retail sales amount, that's fine. You might be an existing farmer's market and just never kept those figures because your vendors, for whatever reason, your market didn't require that they provide sales amount or what they did daily for your market. Sometimes a lot of farmers market will request this information like at the end of the market season, just to recap to see how the farmers are doing. So they have those sales amount. But if you don't, this is how we're going to figure it out. So for farmers market that don't track vendor sales, please check actual sales. So if your farmers market has been operating for at least a year before, we want to know actual sales. We understand this most likely may be estimated sales. To estimate your market sales, take the average of what the vendors make daily. So I kind of did like an example. So some vendors make $100 a day at the farmer's market. Some might make $500. So all vendors will be averaged at $250 a day. Hopefully that makes sense. You would multiply the daily average amount by the number of vendors, then multiply that number by the number of days your market is operating per year. An example, $250 is the daily amount per vendor. You have 4 vendors that participate in your farmer's market. That equals 1,000. We're going to multiply that by 20. That is the number of Saturdays your farmer market operates yearly. Voila, we have an actual estimated retail sales amount of 20,000. We understand even though you have selected actual sales that the figures are estimated, that's fine. For future years, you can start collecting this information from your vendor. So like I said, some market managers, they do like a end of season good or bad survey. So they kind of get that information, provide us with how your market did, how your stand or your stall did at our farmers market. So that's information you can start collecting because once you're authorized, every so often we're going to ask you to provide us with updated sales amount. So you'll have them. Then from there, you would take that gross sales figure and break it down into the percentages categories. Remember this previous slide? I'm going to go right back here. We talked about the percentages. So you can take that gross amount. Remember, this is just an example. Your market percentages will depend on the number of vendors and what they are selling, but you're going to break that down into the different percentage categories. So you have the staple food, the accessory foods, the hot and cold prepared foods, and then you have your non-food items. Okay. Questions?
I do see a couple questions about estimating the product types. So there are many farmers markets where their vendor lineup is not the same every week, or they might still be recruiting vendors. And so if there's a possibility of having dairy or they're not there every week, how would you address that when you're talking about your product types?
I would base it on, I actually probably would base it on current. So if you have 50 of your vendors already, that's a nice amount that you can give us a good average of what different people are going to be selling. But if you only have one or two when you're applying for this application, if you only have one or two vendors, you might want to wait a little while before you apply. Or if you really think that, you know, you're going to get these vendors that's going to come through, then go ahead and give us an estimated of what you think. Hopefully that makes sense. A little bit.
Is this something that folks could update when FNS reaches out for a reauthorization? If you've now you have a dairy cheese vendor or something, you can let them know when that reauthorization comes around.
Yes, you can. Yep. So that's why we reach out every so often, because the market changes and your business or your operation can change. But yep, sure enough.
Great. We also have one question about processing SNAP payments online. I know that this is a big question for farmers markets who have moved some of their pre-market sales online, or farmers who are selling through their websites. What is processing SNAP online like? Is it possible?
On the website that I provided earlier, there is information about online sales and how that works. Currently, there is a pilot program for online processing. As far as farmers market and when they apply for the program, if they're applying through the traditional application, which I am describing, that is not for online sales. That's for the traditional type of farmers market. You go, you have a spot. Now, I know due to COVID, there is some farmers market whom is operating not in the traditional sense where they don't have the vendors there, but they have the vendor's product. So they have like maybe a pickup spot. Due to COVID, those are being allowed. But as far as online transactions and payments, that's not what this application will allow you to do.
Great. I think what Amanda just put in the chat is that it is possible to use online marketplaces to kind of reserve the products, but the customer will have to be there in person to swipe their card in person for payment in order to actually pick up those products from the farmers market and the vendors that are there.
Yes, that is correct, because that's due to COVID. But if that's your only way that you want this market to run after COVID, after things go to what is considered a normal, they're going to tighten back up on those operating points, I guess I could say.
Hey, Teresa, I just wanted to give you a quick note on time that we have about 5 minutes left for your section.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Okay, so 5 minutes left. What we have is now we're at the end of the application. So from this point on, the system now allows you to upload your documents. So you can have your social security card, your photo ID, all that can be saved on your computer. You can just upload that directly to the application, where before you had to mail it in. So we're trying to get a little bit more with the times, I guess you can say. So it's a PDF. Just upload it right to the site. So what are some documents that you would need? You would definitely have to provide the signature page. So the signature page is going to be required for each owner. If this is a partnership or some type of LLC or something like that. So each one of the owners, we will require a signature page. If this market is ran by a market manager, that market manager will just have to provide their signature page. We're also going to require driver's license and social security card for all owners and market manager if the operation is not ran by a 501c3, which brings us down to the last point. So driver's license are only required if the farmer's market is operating under an IRS 501c3 tax exemption. So you need the driver's license as well as the signature page. So no matter what type of ownership your market have, we will require a signature page and the driver's license. Currently, our system is kind of going through a transition. So if you have applied for a farmer's market within the last 2 weeks, or I would say 4 weeks, you might have gotten an email that said a business license is required. A business license is not required for a farmer's market or direct marketing farmer. So we're working through that. So if you happen to apply within this week, you might still get that error. Just go ahead and respond back that, you know, you're a farmer's market and you don't have a business license, okay? Resources. So if you have questions, so once again, the application is located at this website. I showed you exactly the screenshots from those websites to get you to the application, and also just some other helpful hints. If you want to contact someone within Work Center 1, which is the work center that I work for, we have a direct email that you can email us at. We also have this phone number. This is a message line that is checked daily. We try to call back within 24 hours. Just leave your name, your number, your question. Once again, we'll try to call you back. We will call you back, rather, I'm sorry. If you have questions about your application, so you're online and something won't work right, you can call the SNAP Retailer Service Center. Or if you're trying to upload some information and it won't allow you to, you can call this number. I'm done. Okay. Any questions that I have not addressed that we have time for?
I think I see a couple quick questions. Lisa asks, what can someone do if they don't have their social security card, but they do have the number when they are applying for their FNS?
Yes, so if you don't have a social security card, you can provide us with the first page of your most recent tax filing page. So you can take out the spouse, the dollar amount, the dependents, all that information we don't need, but we need to have your name needs to be visible and your address needs to be visible.
All right. And could you repeat that phone number? I'll write it down and put it in the chat while you're talking.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. You would think I know it, and I don't. I want to make sure I give it to you. Okay, so if you have questions and your market changed and you want to notify us, that number is 312 353 6609. So if you have reauthorization questions or any type of questions dealing with an existing FNS number or a future one, you can give us a call there.
We have also gotten a couple requests for if you would be willing to make your slides available to the group today after the presentation so folks can refer to them.
Yes, I could do that.
That sounds great. We will make sure to send that out. I think that is all for the FNS specific questions.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I want to let everyone know that I'm happy to stay on after the official ending time of 1:30 of this workshop and continue answering questions too. And we can, I'm your resource in the state for SNAP and FNS, and you can always email and call with me after all of this too. We're going to go into Farm Direct Nutrition Program now, and we're going to hear from Katie Furia. Katie, are you ready?
Yes, let me get everything going here. I hate to take people away from Teresa. That was really valuable information. Here we go. we seeing that there?
Yes.
Okay.
Katie, we can't see your face if you'd like to turn your video on.
I would. My little option popped away when I shared, so let me find that real quick. There we go. Hey, we all good? We're seeing everything?
Yep, looks good.
Super, okay. Well, wonderful. Hi, everybody. I am Katie Furia with the Farm Direct Nutrition Program, or FDNP. It's not the snazziest acronym, but it's what we have to use. And I'll talk to you today about becoming an authorized farmers market with our program, and then I'll go through a little bit more about how the program works. And looking through the comments and the attendees today, I recognize some names and some markets, but there's some new ones too, which is exciting. Market people are my favorite people, so I'm just really grateful to be here today talking with you. So to start about what Oregon FDNP is, it is a state-administered federal nutrition program, and we have two groups of participants that we serve. One is lower income seniors in Oregon, and the other is families enrolled in the WIC program. And those groups receive checks from us, $4 checks annually, to spend on fresh produce directly with authorized farmers at your farmers markets and farm stands. And quickly go through how it works. So our WIC participants receive their checks directly from their WIC clinics where they're going to receive their other WIC services. And for our seniors, we do everything by mail. So the senior checks usually go out. Most of those are out and in their hands by the end of June. And for the WIC participants, those start going out the end of May all the way through September. So those kind of trickle out through the beginning of the season. And once they have them, both the senior and the WIC checks look exactly the same. They head to a farmer's market or farm stand, and then they spend them directly with the farmers to buy fresh produce, fruits, vegetables, and cut herbs. And then the farmers will then take those checks directly to their bank and deposit them. So as a farmer's market, you probably aren't going to see the checks too often unless you have some customers coming up to the market booth and asking some questions, which you likely will. And then those participants then end up with more fresh, healthy food at home. So yay, that's what we all want. Who aren't with, this sometimes is confusing or people don't totally follow, but I am with the state WIC program, but we do coordinate both the WIC FDNP and the senior FDNP, and we are part of Oregon Health Authority. We receive the state and the federal funding and manage that. We do all the authorization and trainings for the markets and the farmers, distribute all the benefits to participants, and then make sure all the farmers get paid, in addition to all the admin stuff that would be no fun to put on a PowerPoint slide. And for the senior program, we do also partner with Oregon DHS. They help us on the eligibility and then some customer service. And during the course of the season, we contract with 211 Info for a toll-free hotline for our seniors to call with any questions. And a little bit more on who our participants are. For the WIC program, they're going to be pregnant and breastfeeding women, and then children enrolled in the program who are 4 months old to 5 years are eligible to receive the checks. And for our seniors, it's 62 years or older as of April 1st. They need to be receiving either Medicaid and or SNAP benefits. We have some income guidelines there, and then they also need to be living in a situation where they aren't getting food provided for them. So if they're in long-term care and they have their meals covered, they would not be eligible for the program due to that. And for families, they get $28 per person for the season. Up to 5 family members who participate in the program would receive that. And just to clarify that the WIC FDNP benefits are separate from regular WIC benefits, which are on an electronic card that can be used at grocers. Unfortunately, right now, those WIC benefits cannot be used at farmers markets, and the FDNP benefit is separate on the checks, as we talked about. And then the senior checks are $24 per person, and there may be a few people in a household who receive that $24 benefit. We distributed checks to over 57,000 WIC participants and 52,000 seniors. It was actually more seniors than we've ever issued benefits to before, so that feels like a miracle in the year of a pandemic. Not surprisingly, redemption between the two programs was a little bit lower than normal, but we're still feeling pretty happy that we had over 1.4 million redeemed for the fruits and vegetables, on all that, again, paid right to the farmers into their bank accounts. And that 1.4 million is pretty comparable to what we do most years. So even though redemption is down a little bit this year, since we had issued so many benefits, we kind of stuck to a number that we're comfortable with in our budget. And this is a quick snapshot. Hopefully you can see those little numbers on there, just to see how it tends to be distributed throughout the state. 2018 is just the most recent year we happen to have this graphic for. And these dollars are by farm county, so not necessarily where the produce was sold, but where the farm is located. And we don't, unfortunately, track by market. It's just by farm, and then also by participants. But this gives you a little bit of a sense of what that looks like around the state. And it largely follows population. And briefly on the eligible foods, our participants use checks to buy locally grown fresh fruit, vegetables, and cut herbs. Cannot be processed or prepared at all. Unfortunately, we do not allow anything potted or plant starts, edible plant starts. That's just one of our federal regulations. And for our program, we define locally grown as grown in Oregon or a bordering county of one of our bordering states. So for a farmer's market to be qualified to become authorized, you need to meet on a consistent basis at a defined location over the course of a season, and then have at least 3 market vendors over the course of the season who are growing produce in Oregon or a bordering county. And I have over the course of the season underlined because you don't need all of those produce farmers there every market day that you're open. You just need to have at least 3 who come to your market at least some point during the season. And sometimes that looks like you'll have a flower vendor who a few weeks of the year shows up with asparagus or snap peas, something like that. They would count as one of the eligible vendors you would need as a farmer's market. And these qualifications were really developed to make sure that we are authorizing actual farmers market and not crafts markets or flea markets that occasionally have watermelon show up, something like that. So most of the markets, I'm sure probably most of the markets on this call would fall into this category. If you do have any questions about whether you have enough farmers to meet that 3 threshold, which I usually do get a couple questions every year, feel free to ask at the end of this or reach out to me separately. And then at the bottom of this slide, I'll probably say this a few times to make sure it's clear, but U.S. farmers markets are not accepting or depositing the FDNP checks. So it's really pretty easy on your side from start to finish for the program. So applying, after April 1st on our website at myoregonfarm.org, we will have our application posted. It's a really quick, easy application. It's largely just contact information and your operating hours, things like that. If you are a new market to the program, or if you are a new manager to your market, we will ask that you participate in a 30-minute phone orientation, and that will most likely be with me. It's pretty casual. We just sort of go through all the program details. It's your opportunity to ask any questions as well. Then after that, we'll have you sign a 1-year agreement, and then we send out a packet of program materials by mail for you, which has a poster and a guide and a copy of your agreement, just kind of all those goodies. why asking, why would I become authorized? I'm not getting any money. I don't have to process the checks. What are the benefits? So really one of the biggest ones is that we will include you if you are authorized on our online directory, which we market to all of our participants, and it is really widely used. We know a lot of times participants maybe have not been to a local farmer's market, and they definitely use the guide to know where they're allowed to go. So ultimately, it'll be bringing you more shoppers and new customers. And then we also provide some outreach resources if you'd like to use them. So posters, some sample social media posts, some messaging, flyers. And a big thing for your markets would be that there's no tracking or reporting required on your end. So another benefit of not accepting those checks directly. So again, easy for a market. And then ultimately really just being able to support your community and your farmers and open up the market to be more accessible to everyone in your surrounding neighborhoods. These are some images I spoke about those social media images. Those are just some of them that we provide in a flyer there. And then some additional outreach we do for our WIC participants. There's a WIC shopper app that they use for the regular WIC shopping benefits. And during the season, we have a Using Your Farm Direct Checks module on there where they can go and link up to the directory, learn more about the eligible foods, kind of answer all their questions that they need to know. You at the market, from what I hear, will more likely get questions in the market booth from seniors than our WIC participants. We just tend to inform them a little bit more just so that the nature of how things are distributed. And then also for our WIC participants, we send usually around 4 reminder text messages through the season. So those go out to all of our participants who have received checks, but who have not spent them all yet. So we usually start sending them about to July all the way through the end of the season, which is November 30th. And we see a jump in our web traffic after those, and usually a little bit of a jump in redemption. So we know they definitely help, because who can't use a reminder now and then. And here, WIC at the market. This looked a little bit different last year, just with new COVID restrictions and markets not having as many community partners, and it likely will this coming season as well. But just to let you know that a lot of the local WIC agencies do have relationships with local markets. Oftentimes they'll come to a market and actually distribute the checks there on site, which we see incredible redemption on those days. I've also seen partnerships with the local SNAP Ed OSU Extension offices with the WIC offices coming to a market, and they'll do kids activities or food demos. A lot of times they have goodies and bags to give out. So if that is something of interest in the coming season or anytime in the future where you'd like me to help facilitate some relationships, I'm also happy to do that. And briefly on our farmer authorization, qualifications for your farmers would be they need to be growing their own produce and then also selling in a farmer's market or farm stand. Their application process looks pretty similar to yours. The application is the same one that you fill out. The training is slightly different, done by a colleague of mine over the phone. They sign a 3-year agreement and then again receive a packet of materials from us in the mail. And in that is included for them a 4-digit stamp, which they stamp right there on the front of the check. And that's how they're identified when they deposit their checks at the bank. It comes back to us. And we have around 700 authorized farmers in the state. So hopefully some or a lot of your farmers are already authorized with us. And if they are not, we'd love to have you send them our way. I love to include some voices from our participants in all of my presentations. So this one, I've never shopped at a farmer's market before I got my checks, and now I come every week and do the SNAP match as well. Thought that'd be a great lead up since we get to hear about Double Up Food Bucks coming up here. But these programs really don't work alone, and they're not competitive with each other. Our participants really can get the most bang for their buck and have their dollars stretch further when they're able to utilize them all together. So I really love these opportunities in a webinar like this to really come and hear about all these programs and have all these options available at our Oregon markets. And this is my final slide here with contact information. That is my direct cell phone number, so feel free to reach out at any reasonable hour. The joint email there is for our team at the state office. It's only a handful of us that check that, but likely I would be the one to respond to you if you send something there. Since our application isn't live right now, if you know you want to fill out our application, go ahead and shoot an email to me there now, and I will make sure to let you know when it's live. If your market is an existing one, meaning that you've participated last year, we will automatically let you know when the application is live. But if you are a brand new market, let me know and I'll send you that reminder. And then that myoregonfarm.org, that has our program directory on it, also more information for farmers and markets and more for each of our participants. So if you're hungry for more information, I'd love to send you over there. And just a note about the directory, this time of year, it's not 100% accurate because we haven't opened up the application and some things have closed. So if you're looking at that and something looks weird, it will not look weird like that at the start of the season. So that is it for me talking at you. I'd love to hear if there are any questions.
There are a few questions.
Okay.
So I think that you just spoke about this, but could you reiterate that markets do have to apply every year, or is there, okay.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. So we have markets fill out an application every year. You only do the orientation if you are a new market or a new manager for that market. So otherwise you're just filling out the application, and it's really just our opportunity to update your information to put on the directory. So that's why we're asking for it each year.
Great. And could you clarify, is the FDNP benefit for the whole period, that June to November period, or is that monthly like SNAP?
Great question. Yeah, it is just a one-time benefit. So the $28 for each WIC person, and then $24 for each senior person, individual, to use over the course of the season. So we see some people go and send them all at once in one shot. Some stretch them over the course of the season. If you're a WIC family and you have 5 participants, you're getting that benefit times 5. And so you have a good chunk of change. Sometimes we know people save up and just go and get a whole bunch of peaches and then can them. So, I love hearing about what the spending behaviors are of people, but looks a little bit different. But yeah, it's over the course of the season. And not surprisingly, a lot of people wait until the end of November and spend them on the last possible day, but that's how it goes. And unfortunately, some locations are closed by then.
We have 2 questions about product eligibility for FDNP. Number 1 is, does honey count? And number 2 is, how do you define processed? For example, this farmer's market has a vendor who sells dried herbs mixed with salt as a seasoning blend.
Yeah, great question. No to honey, it's just the produce. And processed for our program is really anything besides pulling it out of the ground, capping it and washing it. So we don't allow the dried, technically we don't allow the frozen, but sometimes that slides through. But it really should be minimally processed. When you hear from Double Up Food Bucks, they have broader eligibility there, so they allow a little bit more than we do, but we're pretty straightforward as far as the fresh.
Great. And Kelly, the OFMA executive director, makes the point that we do list your FDNP authorization status in our directory. So if you would like to update us with whether or not you're participating, please email Melissa at OregonFarmersMarkets.org to have that added to your program. We have a couple other questions coming in as we speak. And the phone orientation for new markets, does that have to be the market manager, or can it be a volunteer who's kind of handling these food access programs?
Yeah, we ask for what we just call the representative, and that would be our main contact person. So if you would like that to be a volunteer, it needs to be somebody who's able to sign the agreement as well. That does need to be the same person, but it doesn't have to be a manager. And you can have multiple people in the orientation too. So if a manager wants to come along with a volunteer who's going to be doing a lot, that's totally fine as well.
Great. And very briefly, do mushrooms count as produce?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
mushrooms
as long as they're not dried.
Okay. And if only 1 or 2 of the farmers at your market are actually signed up through FDNP and can accept the checks, is it still something that makes sense for the market to apply if all 3 of those farmers that they list are not currently signed up with FDNP?
That's a great question. I'd say if you at least have 1 farmer who is signed up or who is authorized, it does make sense for the market if you have other eligible farmers too. Because the way our directory works is if we get enough information from the farmer, sometimes we'll list them as a farm stand with your market location, just so people know they can go there. So we'd much rather list your market than a farmer as a farm stand at your market location. That makes sense.
Great. I think that's the end of the questions.
Okay.
On a personal note, I am a farmer who accepts FDNP checks at some of the markets out there. It's a really great program. It doesn't take long at all to apply. If your vendors have questions, send them to me. I'll tell them how to do it. It's great.
Yay. Thank you, Alice. That's wonderful to hear. And then to Kelly's point about how AFMA designates whether you're authorized or not, just to make it clear, if you're authorized for WIC FDNP to accept WIC FDNP, it's also senior FDNP. It's not one or the other. You're Farm Direct Nutrition Program authorized or not. So just to clear that up if that's questionable.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Katie, and thanks
Absolutely
for offering to help farms that are interested in being part of this program.
Yep.
We're gonna move on to Mallory from Farmers Market Fund to hear about Double Up Food Bucks now. Oh, we can't hear you, Mallory.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Let me just get my screen share going here. Okay.
Good, thank you.
Is that working?
Yep.
Great. All right. So yes, I'm Mallory Watson, the program coordinator with Farmers Market Fund, and I'm going to be talking to y'all today about preparing to become a Double Up Food Bucks partner market. There we go. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to give you an overview of the program, how it works, kind of what you could expect as a partner market, and then some tips on preparing to apply to participate. So we at Farmers Market Fund, we make healthy, locally grown food accessible to underserved Oregonians. That's our goal anyhow. And the main way that we do that is through the Double Up Food Bucks program. For those of you who aren't familiar with the program, Double Up provides SNAP recipients with one-to-one match to purchase locally grown fruits and vegetables when they use their SNAP card at the farmer's market. We like to call it a win-win-win because families are able to bring more fresh food home, farmers gain new customers and make more money, and more food dollars stay in a local economy. And then there's also an added benefit of a ripple effect of benefits from folks having increased access to fresh, healthy food. So it could even be a quadruple win. So why incentives for SNAP? I don't have to tell you, the pandemic has had a huge impact on Oregonians financially. The most recent data shows that about 1 in 5 Oregonians are struggling with food security and food access. This past year, 900,000 Oregonians received SNAP benefits and need increased by almost 50% due to the pandemic. Over $1 billion in SNAP was distributed in 2020. So we know the need is great. We know there are a lot of folks who are using these benefits. And we also know that not a lot of this SNAP money gets spent at farmers markets. And we believe the main reason for that is that a lot of people have an idea in their head that farmers markets are expensive or that not for them, these kind of preconceived notions about farmers markets. So we feel that the Double Up program kind of helps break that down and remove that barrier to make the farmers markets feel more accessible for folks who might not have shopped there before. This is just some feedback that we've gotten from our participants in the past. Shoppers have said that they purchase more fruits and veggies because of Double Up, and that the amount of food in their home overall increased thanks to Double Up. And many of them also noticed improvement in their health. The program also really benefits farmers. Farmers made over $1 million in combined SNAP and Double Up sales last year in 2020. And that's just the markets that we work with. So it doesn't include markets that accepted SNAP last year but didn't accept Double Up. Farmers make more money and see more of the same repeat customers and are able to even grow their businesses sometimes. This is a map of all of our markets that participated last year. As you can see, we have lots and lots of sites in Western Oregon, and then a couple in Central Oregon and a couple in Eastern Oregon. We are always looking to expand and work with more markets in Eastern and Central Oregon and try to serve those communities better as well. All right, so now I would like to share a little bit with you about how the program works, if you're not familiar. So similar to what Amanda described with the way that customers are able to use their Oregon Trail card at the market, when they do that, when customers come with their Oregon Trail card, they head to the info booth, they get their SNAP tokens, and then they also are able to receive up to $10 a day in Double Up food bucks for free to spend at the market. And then they're able to take those tokens and their Double Up vouchers and go purchase eligible items from your vendors. This is what our currency looks like this year. And we design and print the currency for all of our markets and send it out to everybody. So there's no cost to print the currency for our participating markets. As you can see, the currency is in $2 increments. And the reason we did $2 increments instead of one is simply to keep printing costs down and allow us to put more money towards the incentives themselves. Similar to SNAP tokens, no change can be given for Double Up food bucks. So they do need to try to buy items in $2 increments in order to get the most out of their money. As Katie mentioned, we do have a few more items eligible for purchase with Double Up than FDNP, but we do have some restrictions that come down from our funders as well. So any fresh, dried, or frozen fruits and vegetables, no added fats, sugars, oils, or salt. And that also includes mushrooms, beans, culinary herbs, no dried like medicinal herbs, unfortunately, but fresh culinary herbs, veggie starts, and nuts. And then the items that are not eligible include things like grains, meats, eggs, dairy. I will say that we've heard from many of our vendors, the SNAP vendors who don't accept Double Up, that they still see an increase in sales when Double Up comes to the market because there are new shoppers coming to the market and folks are able to spend their Double Up money on the fruits and vegetables that they want to take home for the week. And then they have their SNAP tokens left over that they're able to put towards other things like bread or meat or other prepared foods and things like that. So just a little side note about that. All right, so now you have the background about the program, and I want to tell you a little bit about what you can expect as a partner market. So prior to applying, markets need to have offered SNAP for at least 1 year. The reason for that is because we use your SNAP data to help determine how much money you need for the program. And we also feel that having offered SNAP for at least a year, you have a pretty good idea of the capacity requirements that you might need to implement the program. So once you're accepted, you are in charge of vendor communications and reimbursement for Double Up, of course, distributing the Double Up to your customers, supporting communication and outreach efforts about the program, and then data reporting and evaluation. So a little bit more about that reporting. We ask all of our markets to keep weekly records each week of your SNAP and Double Up sales, as well as the SNAP and Double Up reimbursement to your vendors. So there is a weekly tracking component involved. And then you also are asked to report your sales monthly into an online portal. So once a month, you take your weekly records and you just enter them into that portal for us. Just to give you an idea of kind of like the staffing needs for running the program throughout the season. The evaluation piece is really important for us. It helps us ensure that we're meeting the goals of the program, helps us figure out if we need to make changes. So we do customer surveys and vendor surveys like at peak season, so in August or September. And then we also have market manager surveys that we ask all of our managers to fill out. And we develop all the surveys and send them out to you. So your only job with that is just to distribute them to your shoppers and your vendors and collect them back and send them back to us. Communication and outreach is really important too. Of course, you know, folks in your community don't know that you're running the program. They may not come to your market to use it. So we ask that all markets help out with that piece as well. We definitely do a lot of work on that as far as sometimes putting ads in like local newspapers or social media posts, but we ask that you do some of that stuff as well. And we create lots of things like social media tiles like you see in this slide here that are just ready and general enough that any market can just take it and run with it and drop it into whatever social media platforms you use. So we do offer support in that area as well. All right, and then the funding process, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about how that works. So we estimate the funding need, like I said, based on your past SNAP sales. We estimate that during the application process. And in 2020, at least, we funded 70% of the market's need for each market, and then markets were responsible for funding the other 30%. We do offer some support for markets in regards to fundraising as far as like tips, and we have a pretty robust fundraising toolkit, and we're able to connect you to other markets that have had success as well. Especially during the pandemic, we know that fundraising is not easy. So we're here to help support that piece for all of our markets as best we can. We send out checks to markets at the beginning of the season, and then you're able to start using those right away to reimburse funders for Double Up food bucks. So you do also have some time throughout the season to raise that 30%. You don't have to have it all in hand right when the season starts. But we hope that you'll be raising that as the season goes on. All right, and then a little bit about our funders. So funding for the program is made possible by the GovNet federal grant. This is an appropriation from the Farm Bill that's specific for nutrition incentives. So we are really excited to have that funding this year. We also have a state grant from the state of Oregon that we secured in 2019, and we are currently working on securing funding for the next biennium from the state right now. That's going on in the current legislative session. We also get some funding from local foundations and then individual donors as well. All right, so now you have all that background and you're getting ready to start your first year of SNAP. So I just wanted to offer a couple tips before you apply or as you're getting ready and thinking about applying for the program. I definitely recommend starting to keep thorough records now. As I mentioned, we ask markets to maintain weekly records of all the SNAP sales and the double up distribution and all of the reimbursements. So if you already have those systems in place with your SNAP records this year, then you'll be ready to just drop in the double up right alongside that. And it shouldn't be too much of a transition on that piece. And you also will need those SNAP records and customer counts and things like that to fill out the application. Another thing is, consider any staffing or volunteer changes that might need to happen in order for your market to be able to run the program. Will you need to hire someone new or allocate more hours to someone who's already on staff? Call on board members to help out. These kind of things you can start thinking about now and prepare for next year. I also recommend starting to think about that local match piece, that 30% of your need that you would need to fundraise. Start building relationships in the community or thinking about what types of fundraisers or other events you might be able to run in order to raise that money. And just as an aside, I think, as you start going through your first season with SNAP, you'll begin to get a better idea of your sales and what your match amount might look like. And you can also always feel free, to reach out to me if you have questions. And I can try to help you get a better idea of what that fundraising piece might be for you. And then the final thing is make sure you have offered SNAP at your market for at least one full season, which you are already on track for since your first season with SNAP is about to be underway. Applications for the main season are posted in January. That would be the first time that I think this group, most of you at least, would be eligible for the program. If you've run SNAP at your market before and you're here because you are switching your FNS authorization to a, updating your information, things like that, then you might be eligible for this season. Our application's open right now. If you think you might be eligible, but you're not sure for this season, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to walk you through it and help you figure out whether you're eligible. So I think that's it. I know that was kind of a whirlwind of information. I was trying to fit maybe a lot into a short time, but I'd love to answer questions if anybody has any.
I have a question. I haven't seen any others come through the chat, but I know we've had a lot of questions about accepting EBT and for CSAs, and we will touch on that in just a moment. But I know last year, Double Up Food Bucks partnered with what used to be the Portland Area CSA Coalition, which is now the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition. And I was wondering if you all are doing that again this year, and if you could speak to Double Up Food Bucks for CSAs as well.
Yeah, we still work with what used to be known as PACSAC, which now I can't remember the acronym, but yeah, we still work with them. We don't do any of the CSA work. We're focused solely on farmers markets. But Holly Hutchison is the person who is in charge of Double Up for CSAs, and she's the person to contact about that.
Yeah, Alice, just to remind everyone, this workshop's being put on by OFMA, the Oregon Farmers Markets Association, and we were trying to pull together information for people operating farmers markets, but I know there's a lot of farms on this call too, and just to say that CSAs and the farm side of things isn't so much my expertise, but if you do have questions and you're not sure where else to turn, you can still send me an email and I can get you pointed to the right person. And Alice is going to give a little bit of help on where farms can turn to ask questions regarding CSAs.
Yeah, so I did see some CSA related questions in the chat. And so Holly Hutchison from the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition, formerly known as PACSAC, is a statewide organization that is helping farms conduct CSAs through EBT payments. She has a FNS number already. She has the equipment to process it. She has a plan. And that's a really great way to go to get in contact with her, to list your CSA in their directory. I believe it's a donation-based membership. And that's also important because when you're a farm thinking about accepting SNAP for CSAs, CSAs are often more expensive than the total allocation for a month of SNAP. And so you have to space out those payments. And that's something that Holly has down to a science. And she also has all of the eligibility requirements for what CSAs qualify, how much double up food bucks your purchaser can get to kind of match that out. And she knows all of the details about how much your CSA can qualify and how to get those payments processed. And the bottom line is you should contact her so that your customers have an option to use EBT and you will still get the full price of your CSA through that partnership. So they're in the chat box for you right now. And to contact Mallory, you can contact her at mallory@portlandfarmersmarket.org in order to get more info about getting double up food bucks at your market.
Great. I have one last slide to show, Mallory, if you, okay. I'm gonna put, there we go. Thanks everyone for attending today. This has been so great. I'm really thankful to all of our presenters. It's been a lot of information in an hour and a half. Happy to stay on with people if they want to ask a few more questions and talk with you later by email or phone. Here's the contact information for the presenters we had today. And also thanks so much to Alice. It was really helpful to have you here guiding our chat and the questions that came through. Let's see, does any, this is it. This is the end. Thanks everybody. If people have questions, I can stick around.
We do have a couple more questions that we wanted to circle back to.
Mm-hmm.
Abby asked if we currently rent our card processing equipment from TSYS and have previously gotten that rental cost covered through grants, but paid the fees this year. Since we rent the equipment, not own it, could they qualify for a DHS program since they don't own the equipment outright?
Yeah, they'd have to give the equipment back and then be able to tell Oregon DHS we have no equipment.
Gotcha.
And then they'd apply and then they'd qualify, yeah.
Cool. So I know a while ago, Stephanie asked for information on contacting DHS about their application. You can, of course, use OFMA's online toolkit for that, which I'll drop in the chat.
Yeah, the way to apply for that free equipment is to go through the application that is on OFMA's website, which I think Alice is about to put a link to there. There isn't really, this is a very, very, very tiny program amidst all the many things that Oregon DHS does. And so there isn't really a place to go within their department to talk to. It's pretty much you go through me and I get it to the right place.
And then we have a question about how much, I think that Mallory touched on this, but how much bookkeeping is associated with the SNAP program? What would you recommend tracking?
Yes. So, I mean, I think honestly, like throughout the season, if you're already keeping track of all of your SNAP tokens or anything and everything, it's not a huge, oh, sorry, my camera's not on. It's not a huge increase. I've heard, and I think it depends on you and kind of like your systems and everything, but from many markets I've heard maybe like an additional hour a week or so to count all the vouchers and get everything entered. It's a little bit more work at the info booth because you have to write everything down, each SNAP transaction that comes through. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then, you know, maybe an hour each month to enter everything in online, an hour or less. And then at the end of the year, we do have like a year-end reconciliation process where we ask you to get everything together and send it to us. So that's a little bit of additional work as well. Distributing the surveys, that's an at market thing. So it's hard to say like a total number, but I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of all of the different things that you'd be responsible for as a market manager. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think so. Just to Laura's question, I was also the manager of a very small market who is a C3, but I was the only staff person. I was incredibly part-time. And this record keeping, I found it actually very helpful for us because when you are a very small organization, you need to make sure that when you're putting those tokens out, they might not get used right away the same day. And so having those records be accurate will help you make sure that when those reimbursements come calling, you have enough money in your market account to reimburse your farmers if those tokens or the double up is, especially with SNAP, because that's not restricted funding. Normally it just comes into your account and it doesn't always look the same. But it helped me to track those SNAP records by transaction so that we would always have enough in the account to cover our SNAP tokens who were out there in the world. And I think that's a really crucial part of it, especially for really small markets who might be more informal.
That's a great point. Thanks, Alice.
I see there's a question in the chat about if DHS and or MarketLink will have free equipment or services come 2022. And just to clarify, that MarketLink's program does go through September of 2022. They only fund you for a year though. So if you apply now, you would only go through this time next year, even though their program lasts longer. The programs like what DHS and MarketLink have been offering the funding for that has kept coming up over the last 10 years. So I would be hopeful that there would be a new round of funding for these types of programs after 2022, but I'm not an expert on that part of it. I don't. But I would say take advantage of what's here now, apply now, get your markets going on all of these programs. Yeah. Other questions?
This is not a question that came through the chat, but I want to give Mallory an opportunity to say if there's any market managers out here who would want to engage with helping get more funding for Double Up Food Bucks through the legislature. Is there a way that they can get involved with that, or should they just contact you to see what opportunities are available?
Just to clarify, do you mean, so I guess the way that folks can help for us to get our state appropriation again, which means that we can serve more markets, would be to follow along with what we're doing in the legislature. We just had a hearing last week, but we're having another hearing on March 3rd, I believe. So if there are any of you guys who want to be involved by submitting a testimony, either written or spoken, yeah, please do get in touch with me and I can help coordinate that for you. Thank you.
Great. And we have another question from Abby. Can you talk more about why the DHS program cannot be used to process debit and credit transactions? Like when you get that machine from DHS, why doesn't it cross over?
So that comes from a rule that the funding for that comes through FNS, and that is a rule placed at that federal level that they don't want. They want this funding is going to just make sure that markets are able to process SNAP at their markets, and is not for helping with having credit or debit at their markets. sorry, did that answer? It's an FNS rule.
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering if because right now we use the same equipment to process, debit cards and EBT. And ideally we would be able to use the same equipment for that, and understand why like the transaction fees wouldn't necessarily be the same or be covered, but we would have to have 2 separate machines to do that then, or like 2 separate apps kind of thing.
Yeah, I am currently right now in the process of trying to get Oregon DHS's program to get some kind of exception or get a way around this. I'm not feeling super confident right now that they might make that happen. So I don't want to make any promises to people. Just to let you know, I'm working on it, but it's sort of like, so this money came at the federal level to a lot of different states. And other states in the country have let us know at our program that we weren't supposed to be doing that, letting markets use this equipment for credit and debit. And so we're trying to work through that, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it. And so yes, if that comes through, then the result is through the Oregon DHS program, you won't be able to use the equipment you get from that program for credit and debit. However, MarketLink, they don't have the same rules for some reason. And so if you're able to get yourself your own device, you could go through the MarketLink program to get some of the expense taken off, because they will provide you with the sales app, the Total Pay Go, free for a year, plus cover your SNAP transaction fees. And you can use that equipment for credit and debit at your own cost. So, and that's what I mean by like the 2 programs both have different pros and cons, and weighing that out, whether it's the credit and debit functionality, whether it's how long the programs last, whether it's you are able to bring your own device to the program, can be a little complicated to weigh out. And I'm happy to talk with people about that and figure out which one is the right one for you.
Okay, thanks.